Hello everyone and welcome to the third episode of WONDERTALK, where we talk about my growing character's backstory. He's a Cathar Sith Inquisitor, and I really like hearing from you guys about what his backstory, his personality, and just what's happening in his life as he travels along Korriban. His main story is already decided by the game, but that doesn't mean we can't play around with the other things in his life. On the last episode of the playthrough, I just continued on in Korriban. I'm moving at an extremely slow pace. I'm probably not going to be off of Korriban for another 5 episodes. I'm kind of been thinking a lot about how much content there is in the game if you're taking your time. If you're traveling through doing just the class story and going really fast, Korriban can be done in well under an hour, but as someone who's exploring and reading things and doing all the quests, oh gosh, it's taking forever in the best kind of way. Like, I'm not worried about running out of content anytime soon. As I'm playing, I've been keeping a HOLOPAD. The main reason was so I didn't forget what happened every episode, because I only play once a week. But I've also kind of enjoyed the idea of it being a HOLOPAD back to his master before he became a Sith Acolyte. So here's his third HOLOPAD entry. I journeyed into the tome of Tulak Hord today, and uncovered his readings for Lord Zash and his hate machine. I'm wondering if I should spend time studying the ancient Sith language, as everything I find is meaningless to me here. As I made my way into the tomb, I completed a favor for Lord Abaron. He claims the Sith as a whole are descended from ancient Sith priests and humans, and that the unpure should be cleansed from the academy. My family lived for hundreds of years on Cathar. I can assure him I'm plenty pure, and that the Force flows strongly through me. I hope the Dark Council does not accept his request. I'll be one of the first cleansed as a former slave and a Cathar. I will return tonight to give Overseer Harken the shards I found in Tulak's tome. On the last episode of WONDERTALK, I asked you guys what Javik's Sith Slave Master would be like, his Sith Lord. Basically what happened is he lived with his family in Alderaan, happy joy family. They eventually had to flee and picked up by the Imperials, and then he had to go work as a just manual labor slave, but eventually he got picked up as a slave for a Sith Lord because he used to work in some of the royal houses of Alderaan, so he had like serving skills, manners, stuff like that. And I asked you guys, what would his master be like? I didn't have a name for him, I just kind of vaguely knew that he didn't kill Javik and somehow got him into Korriban to do some training. And here's some of the comments that you guys left that I really enjoyed reading. So, for his name, as always, you guys came to the total rescue because names are definitely my weak point. This is from Ethan. Ethan suggested, regarding the master, his name is Lord Shalin, Shalin. He is an older Sith towards the end of his life. I like Lord Shalin. That sounds like a great name for a Sith Lord. Perfect. Trig PT also suggested the name Structor, like Destructor, and I didn't really, it seemed a little bit overbearing for someone's actual name, but I think it'd be an awesome name for a Darth, but I don't think my Sith Lord's going to be a Darth Sith Lord. Ryan Campbell had the idea that he was kind of maybe a black sheep. I think your masters may be very powerful, but also somewhat of a black sheep of the Sith Order, questioning too many things and going against the Dark Council often. I think this could contribute to Javik's rebellious nature towards Harken and some of the other Sith. Javik doesn't need a lot of a reason to be rebellious. He's just kind of an impatient Cathar and not really happy about his situation in general, but I do really like the idea of the Master not necessarily being just a very basic Sith Lord. A lot of the Sith Lords hate each other to start with, but they tend to try and follow the Dark Council's orders because they're quite scary, to be frank. And here's an idea that kind of got me started on the right path. What if Javik's master was not a Sith, but a Grey Jedi posing to have turned to the dark side exposed to Sith? This happens sometimes. Maybe that is why he let Javik live and send him to the Sith, because he knew he needed training and he could give it to him without exposing his true purpose. Maybe he believed in the balance of the Force, so he sent him to be trained as a Sith first, so he could then rescue him, train him as Jedi, and allowing him to choose sides, like dark or gray. This is Demetrios Slazos left this comment, and I kind of like the idea that he was maybe trying something out with Javik. Like, Javik wasn't sent to as a Sith Acolyte just to get rid of him, but really trying to do some kind of purpose or idea. And then many of you, which is awesome, suggested that his Sith Lord should be a Sith alchemist. And this is what Lord of the Betrayed said. Maybe the Master's curiosity was sparked from the fact that he was a Sith alchemist. That is kind of a thing that neither Sith Sorcerer nor Sith Warrior has. Not even something in between, but something unique. They delved into the ancient arts of Sith alchemy, creating Sith spawn, mutating beasts with the dark side, manufacturing deadly plagues, and studying the depths of the dark side to unravel the secrets of eternal life. Curiosity and hunger for knowledge came natural to them, so perhaps Javik's master was exactly that. Perhaps a Sith pureblood trying to unravel how the dark Jedi that came to Korra managed to use the Sith alchemy to merge Sith species and humans in the Sith race we know in-game. And that is so fun, because these comments were actually made before I started playing the walkthrough, but we literally just finished the quest where we learn exactly where the Sith of Korriban come from. And the Rambling Brit also left a comment along the same lines. It might be cool if he was a very scientific Sith. It would lend credence to the idea he left his former master's saber just lying around. It would also add to the idea that you're making a diary for the benefit of your master, so now I kind of have an idea why I actually am leaving this holopad other than for my horrible, horrible memory. Yes, good job, Rambling Brit. And Taram left this interesting comment tying into what I've actually already seen. Perhaps he was a somewhat eccentric figure among the Sith, since perhaps he only keeps aliens as slaves. Maybe he has a particular fascination with the Cathar race, being attracted to them for physical strength and prowess, but also as a status symbol, since their numbers were so thinned out during the Mandalorian Wars. Maybe he was even a scientist, like we saw in the Tukata Brain Quest, and he was trying to experiment on aliens to see how they respond to Force rituals. And I love that. Like, we've seen so much Sith alchemy so far. Why not pull that into our backstory? Well, at least our Sith Lord Master's backstory. And here's a really cool idea from Creeper Man. And they said that, I think Javik's master would have been a Sith scholar or scientist, with specializations in psychology or sociology. He would recognize the tendencies of his slave and have the behavioral knowledge to set the trap. His riches and reputation would come from studying the mental profiles of the Jedi, essentially creating guides and tactics or torture and subterfuge against them. He wouldn't necessarily be a sadistic individual, but his curiosity and cunning would drive him. And that is such a cool idea. If anyone wants to steal that for their own backstory, I don't think it's one I'm going to pursue, but I love the idea of the fact that there is probably Sith out there whose only job is to study the Jedi and see how to truly take them down without using the power of the Force, because we know that the Sith use torture. This is shown in, it's integral to the Star Wars movies that the good guys get tortured by the bad guys, and we know this also happens in the games itself. We started a quest in a playthrough that I didn't manage to finish, but we know that a Jedi prisoner was tortured. They even messed with his mind and implanted false memories. So that's such a cool idea to play with. But I do like the idea of setting a trap, which I've said is how Javik kind of got caught with his Force powers by his master. Originally, his master left a lightsaber in his study and had Javik find it. And I wasn't really sure what kind of race I wanted my master to be. I was like, oh, it'd be super cool if he was a Cathar. That would be awesome. But I think there would be a little too much bonding going on there if he was. So, Schmitty said that I would say that his master is a Sith pureblood, which I feel is survival of the fittest type. And that seems to kind of fit in with the ideas that everyone else has said so far. So, sure. Especially because we did that quest where we learned about Sith purebloods. That was very cool. Let's say that his name is Lord Shallan, and he is a Sith pureblood who is quite old now. And someone else made another comment, and I forgot to write down who, I apologize. They said, I believe that a good idea would be if his master is a human Sith Lord, but a not so important one that would be closer to Sith nobility than the Dark Council, pretty much like Lord Grathan, which is pretty much exactly what I was going for, and literally what I was thinking about when I was thinking a Sith Lord. I was thinking about Lord Grathan himself, and I've actually used Lord Grathan in some of my other backstories as someone who's involved in them, not quite as closely as being a Master or Sith Lord, but still a part of it, so definitely like Lord Grathan, and definitely not on the Dark Council or anywhere near as powerful as they are. And I love this tiny little short story that Anna Summer wrote. It was very, very fun to read, and it's got a punch at the end. His master is a powerful Sith who is not one of the chosen, more privileged race like the Sith pureblood or human. He took years and years to finally achieve his mastery of the dark side of the Force. Many of the other Sith on the Dark Council frequently moan about the purity of Sith blood, looking pointedly at him. One day, push came to shove, and the Sith had a heated debate whether the new recruited alien acolytes would ever amount to anything. Javik's master claimed, "I promise you, I could make even a slave worthy of your respect." He is forced to prove his words, and he watched his new slaves carefully for any sign of Force sensitivity. He noticed a certain aura around his new slave, Javik. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. I really like that idea. And since we already picked him to be a Sith pureblood, the story doesn't quite match up. But let's just say the idea that he was a bit of a black sheep and he told the Dark Council, "Kiss my fanny, I could make even a slave worthy of your respect." And that's maybe his experiment with Javik. So he's got a lot of motivation for Javik to succeed, which kind of makes sense with the story we decided so far. He hasn't beaten Javik to death or anything like that, and he got him into the Sith Academy instead of just, I don't know, killing him outright. Just get him out of the way. And here's another suggestion that's kind of running along the same lines. Javik always had an affinity for the Force, but it was brought to the surface and dark side through some sort of pain or trauma, perhaps the loss of his father or Force violence he had to perform. We already decided that part, but that's okay. The Sith Master knew of this, and that he wasn't ready to the Academy, so he kept Javik close to him, perhaps to protect him or teach him. And I just like the idea that Craig Parse brought up, that he's keeping Javik close to him to protect him or to teach him. And I kind of like the idea of having mixed motivations for Javik's Sith Lord Master, that he's not necessarily 100% there to cuddle him and, "Oh, I love you, kitty baby, I'm gonna protect you forever and I'm gonna make you a happy little Sith Lord." And he's also not there 100% to turn him into Sith alchemical weapon. I kind of like a combination to protect him and to teach him. I think that'd be kind of interesting to follow. Kind of like a father figure, but also trying to, do his science. Now, Trick PT also left this comment, and they got a little carried away in terms of the leg. I'm usually just... when I ask you guys to comment, I'm usually looking for something. You don't have to write a whole story. Just put out your ideas. They can be in bullet points. They could be a few sentences, paragraphs, whatever you want. I promise you don't have to write a story if you want to pitch into the conversation. But Trig PT did, and I really liked it, and I actually wanted to read a majority of it because I enjoyed it so much. I want to use a huge chunk for the backstory. And it starts like this. Javik's master is a retired former teacher at the Sith Academy on Korriban. He avoided the politics of the Sith as best as he could and focused on teaching his students and delving into the dark mysteries of the tombs and libraries on Korriban. Since retiring, he decided to continue his studies further afield and fitted out a medium-sized ship as both a luxury yacht and research vessel. While visiting Drummond Costa tour the site of the unfinished Colossus, he met Javik for the first time. His years teaching had given him a knack for spotting talent, and there was something about this young Cathar slave that piqued his interest. He made inquiries, and to his delight, learned Javik had at one time served nobility, and so made arrangements for Javik to join his crew as his personal steward. He detected early on that Javik had some latent Force sensitivity, and to amuse himself, he tried to teach without teaching. He devised tasks for Javik that seemed innocent enough, but would encourage using the Force without saying, "Use the Force." Over time, Javik's sensitivity became stronger, but was still very weak. A cup would move across the table, a HOLOPAD would short out, and a small display of sparks. He chuckled to himself when these things happened, and he saw a confused Javik trying to hide what happened. His own master had been a very powerful Sith Lord in his day, and he still had his lightsaber. It was housed in an unornate case in his quarters and was a very special blade indeed. The lightsaber had been the subject of a dark ancient ritual which allowed it to amplify the power of the wielder. The power had faded with the passing of time, but one day his curiosity got the better of him and he decided to do a little experiment and left the lightsaber out on his desk. And I'm just going to use that whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel, add on the fact that his name is Lord Shallan. Lord Shallan is Javik's former slave master and Sith Lord that he's sending these holopads to. And he is a Sith pureblood. So maybe we'll even run into him on Dromund Kaas. We can figure out how we can work that into the story. So following along the idea that Lord Shallan is a Sith alchemist, this is my question for today. What kind of Sith alchemy do you think he was studying? We've so far encountered Sith alchemy focused on the creatures of Korriban. We've heard about the Tukata brains. We've heard about Tukata being grown into gigantic sizes. We've heard that the Kalor slugs have been mutated in some way or another. We know that the bat things are really nasty and poop everywhere, but that's a whole different story. Oh my god, please don't post that Lord Shallan was studying the bat poop. No. For those of you who played Knights of the Old Republic, we know Sith alchemy created the Terentatek, the very scary beasts that you have to fight in the game that are impervious to the Force. And Lord of the Betrayed brought us some of the other things they did, like unraveling the secrets of eternal life, or manufacturing deadly plagues. All kinds of crazy stuff like that. And of course, just kind of studying what the ancients have left behind. We also had some ideas that maybe focusing more on the ideas of sociology or psychology, or rather messing with people's minds. Someone has to develop Mind Trick for the first time. And if we've already decided that he wants to definitely really support Javik and really put him through as a proper acolyte, and we kind of know he kind of tricked Javik into his Force powers in the first place, what do you think his motivations for training Javik are? What do you think he's getting out of this? I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'd love to work it into the backstory. Feel free to comment on this video below. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!